Chuck Connors was born Kevin Joseph Aloysius Connors on April 10, 1921, in Brooklyn, New York. His parents, Alan and Marcella Connors, were Irish immigrants who worked hard during the Great Depression. His father worked as a longshoreman while his mother took small jobs to help support the family. Life was tough, but it taught Chuck the importance of hard work and determination. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, Chuck spent most of his time at the Bay Ridge Boys Club playing sports. Baseball was his favorite, and he dreamed of one day playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers. When he turned 14, his athletic talent caught the attention of scouts, and he received an athletic scholarship to Adelphi Academy, a private high school in Brooklyn. This opportunity changed his life completely. At Adelphi, Chuck excelled in multiple sports including baseball, basketball, football, and track. On the baseball field, he was a strong first baseman, and in 1939 he was named one of the top high school players in Brooklyn. After graduating, more than 25 colleges offered him athletic scholarships. He chose Seton Hall University in New Jersey, where he played both basketball and baseball. While at Seton Hall, Chuck played as a backup center on the basketball team, using his height and defensive skills to help the team win games. However, baseball remained his strongest sport. In one memorable game in 1942, he hit 2 home runs and had 6 runs batted in, which caught the attention of professional scouts. It was during this time that he got his famous nickname. While playing first base, he would yell, "Chuck it to me," and the name stuck with him forever. Chuck's college years were interrupted by World War II. In 1942, he joined the Army and trained at Fort Knox. Because of his height and athletic abilities, he was chosen to be a tank warfare instructor. He later worked to West Point, training soldiers and even teaching famous football players who went on to win national championships. Despite being in the military, Chuck stayed connected to sports by playing semi-professional baseball in Brooklyn during his free time, and even playing professional basketball in the American Basketball League. After serving 3 years in the Army, Chuck was honorably discharged in 1946. He immediately joined the Boston Celtics during their very first season. Standing 6 feet 5 inches tall, he played as a forward and center. Connors played in 49 games that season, averaging 4.5 points per game. His best performance came on December 13, 1946, when he scored 15 points in a close win against the Providence Steamrollers. However, his basketball career was short-lived. In February 1947, after just a few months with the Celtics, Connors left to chase his real dream of playing baseball. Chuck got his big chance with the Brooklyn Dodgers on May 1, 1949, but it didn't go as planned. In his one and only game for the Dodgers, he hit into a double play, and the team lost. Instead of giving up, he worked hard in the minor leagues, playing for teams like the Montreal Royals. In 1951, he made it back to the major leagues with the Chicago Cubs. That season, he played 66 games and had some memorable moments. On July 18, 1951, he hit his first home run against the New York Giants, and a month later on August 26th, he hit another one, also against the Giants. By the end of the season, Connors had 48 hits and a batting average of .239, which wasn't bad for someone who was splitting his time between 2 sports. Chuck's Hollywood story began in the most unexpected way in 1952. He was playing baseball for the Los Angeles Angels, a minor league team, when during a game against the Sacramento Solons, he hit a massive home run. The ball didn't just clear the fence. It caught the attention of Billy Gordon, a casting director from MGM who was in the crowd. Billy was impressed by Chuck's tall, strong frame and rugged face. After the game, he walked right into the locker room and handed Chuck his business card, telling him he should think about acting. Chuck didn't take the suggestion seriously at first because he was focused on baseball and couldn't see himself as an actor. However, just a couple of weeks later, Chuck injured himself during a game. It wasn't serious, but it gave him time to think. Out of curiosity, he decided to visit MGM to see what this acting thing was about. To his surprise, they offered him a screen test right away. He gave it a shot, they liked what they saw, and just 3 days later, Chuck signed his first Hollywood contract. That quick decision changed his life forever. His first role was in a movie called Pat and Mike, a romantic comedy starring Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. Chuck's part was small. He played a police captain, but it was still a big moment for someone who had just started acting. On his first day of filming, Chuck was excited but nervous. He arrived early and spent hours getting ready. His scene didn't happen until late that night, but when the cameras finally rolled, he nailed it in just 2 takes. Spencer Tracy even pulled him aside afterward and told him, "You've got something, stick with it." Those words meant the world to Chuck and gave him the confidence to keep going. After that first role, Chuck threw himself into acting completely. He took on every role he could find, big or small. Between 1952 and 1958, he appeared in over 20 movies. One of his most memorable early roles was in Disney's Old Yeller in 1957, where he played Bern Sanderson. The movie was a huge hit and helped Chuck get noticed even more. He also appeared in films like Trouble Along the Way with John Wayne and The Big Country, where he acted alongside Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston. Each role helped him improve as an actor and build his reputation in Hollywood. Chuck Connors became famous as Lucas McCain in The Rifleman, but it didn't happen right away. In 1957, Connors played a father in Disney's Old Yeller. The producers of The Rifleman saw his performance and thought he was perfect for their show. At first, Connors said no because the pay was less than what he earned doing other acting jobs. But the producers really wanted him, so they offered more money and even gave him 5% ownership of the show. That convinced him to take the role. Once Connors was cast, he started training to prepare for the role. He practiced horseback riding and learned how to spin and shoot a rifle in a way that looked cool on camera. He worked with a gun expert named Rod Redwing to master these moves. Connors practiced so much that his hands got sore and blistered, but he didn't stop until he got everything just right. The Rifleman premiered on September 30th, 1958, and people loved it immediately. Over 14 million viewers tuned in to see the first episode. Connors' character Lucas McCain was tough but also kind, especially with his son Mark, played by Johnny Crawford. The father-son relationship became one of the most beloved parts of the show. Critics said Connors did a great job showing both strength and emotion. The rifle in the show was also a big deal. It wasn't just a regular rifle, it was a Winchester 1892 that had been modified to make it unique. The lever was made extra large so Connors could spin it in a flashy way. This spinning move became his signature and was shown at the start of every episode. The rifle was also able to shoot really fast because of a special screw in the trigger. This made for exciting scenes where McCain could outgun multiple bad guys in seconds. What made The Rifleman different from other shows was its focus on family. Lucas McCain was a widowed father raising his son alone in the Old West. This wasn't common on television at the time, where most families were shown as having both parents. The show often explored the challenges Lucas faced as both a father and a protector. Single fathers in particular wrote letters to Connors thanking him for showing that they weren't alone in their struggles. Chuck Connors wasn't just the star of The Rifleman. He had a big role behind the scenes, too. By the second season, he started attending meetings with the writers. He pitched story ideas, and some of them became fan-favorite episodes. Connors also made sure the dialogue fit the character of Lucas McCain. He wanted McCain to sound like a real rancher from that time, so he often rewrote lines to include old-fashioned slang. The Rifleman became the 4th highest-rated show on television in its first season, reaching 14.6 million households. The show's success led to merchandise like toy rifles, lunchboxes, and comic books, generating $2 million in sales within 3 months of its premiere. It also earned 3 Emmy nominations in its first season and stayed popular throughout its 5-year run. After The Rifleman ended in 1963, Chuck Connors faced a big challenge. The role of Lucas McCain had made him famous, but it also trapped him in the image of a Western hero. Viewers couldn't separate Connors from the character, which became a problem when he wanted to prove he could play other roles. He rejected many offers to do more Westerns, turning down 8 Western television pilots in just 2 years after The Rifleman ended. To break away from his cowboy image, Connors tried something very different in the 1964 film Move Over, Darling. He played a stiff, formal banker alongside Doris Day and James Garner. It was a big change from his rugged frontier roles, but the film didn't help him much. Producers and casting directors still saw him as Lucas McCain, And even when he auditioned for non-Western roles, they often said he seemed too Western. Despite these struggles, Connors found new opportunities in television shows that let him show different sides of his acting talent. In Arrest and Trial from 1963 to 1964, Connors played John Egan, a defense attorney. The show was ahead of its time, splitting each 90-minute episode into 2 parts. Critics praised his performance, but the show was canceled after just 1 season. Connors' most powerful performance came in 1977 when he played Tom Moore in the groundbreaking miniseries, Roots. The series followed the history of an African-American family from slavery to modern times. Connors portrayed a cruel plantation owner, a role completely different from his past characters. His chilling performance showed the brutal realities of slavery without turning Moore into a caricature. The show was a massive success, with its final episode watched by around 100 million viewers. Connors' role earned him an Emmy nomination. Chuck Connors' personal life was full of love, heartbreak, and drama, much like the characters he played on screen. His first marriage was to Elizabeth Jane Riddell, or Betty, a model from Montreal, Canada. They met in 1948 during one of Chuck's baseball games when he was playing for the Montreal Royals. They got married on October 1, 1948, when Chuck was just 27 and still figuring out his career. Together, they had 4 sons, Michael, Jeffrey, Stephen, and Kevin. At first, everything seemed perfect, but when Chuck's acting career took off, especially after he landed The Rifleman in 1958, things started falling apart. He was away for long periods filming and working, and rumors about him being unfaithful began to spread. In 1961, Betty discovered he was having an affair with an actress on one of his film sets. That was the breaking point for her. She filed for divorce, and it was finalized in 1962. Chuck's second marriage happened in 1963 when he married Kamala Devi, an actress he had met on the set of Geronimo. Kamala was born in Mumbai, India, and her mixed Indian and British heritage made their marriage stand out in Hollywood at a time when interracial relationships were still rare. They worked together in many shows and movies, but things weren't always smooth between them. The marriage also faced issues because of Chuck's reputation for being unfaithful. After 9 years together, they divorced in 1972. Chuck's third marriage was his shortest and perhaps the most controversial. He met Faith Quabius on the set of Soylent Green in 1973, where she had a small role. Faith was much younger than Chuck, 33 years younger to be exact. They got married on September 7, 1977, in a private ceremony in Mexico, but their marriage only lasted 3 years. By 1980, they divorced, and Faith later accused Chuck of being abusive during their marriage, blaming his drinking for his behavior. Chuck denied the allegations, but the claims hurt his public image. Chuck Connors had strong political views that made him stand out in Hollywood. In 1967, when most people in Hollywood were against the Vietnam War, Chuck joined a pro-war parade in New York City. He didn't just talk about his beliefs. He worked hard to support them. He helped Republican candidates, especially Barry Goldwater, during the 1964 presidential election. This hurt his career, but Chuck didn't care. He once said, "I'd rather lose a job than give up my principles." One of the most surprising things about Chuck's career was how much the Soviet Union loved his show, The Rifleman. During the 1960s and 1970s, when tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were high, The Rifleman became one of the few American shows allowed on Soviet television. People loved his character Lucas McCain because he was a strong father and stood for justice. By 1973, around 250 million Soviets were watching the show. Even Leonid Brezhnev, the Soviet leader, was a huge fan. When Brezhnev visited Washington, D.C. in 1973, he asked to meet Chuck Connors. This meeting led to something incredible, later the Sears. That year, Brezhnev invited Chuck to visit Moscow. Chuck stayed for 2 weeks and was treated like a big star. He met Brezhnev at the Kremlin, and the two even had a playful contest with guns Chuck had gifted him earlier. During this trip, Chuck filmed a documentary called Peace and Friendship, which was shown on Soviet television to millions of viewers. A year before his death, Connors had one last special role. On November 3, 1991, he appeared in a television movie called The Gambler Returns, The Luck of the Draw, which starred Kenny Rogers. Connors played his most famous character Lucas McCain from The Rifleman, for a short but memorable scene. Even though the scene was only about 90 seconds long, it brought back memories of Connor's most loved role. Fans were thrilled to see him as McCain one last time. In 1992, when he was 71 years old, doctors discovered that Chuck had lung cancer. This was likely because he smoked heavily, up to 3 packs of cigarettes every day. Fans were shocked because Connors was always seen as strong and healthy. At first, he didn't tell many people about his illness and kept making public appearances. But by October 1992, he became much sicker. On October 28th, he was taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles because he also had pneumonia, which made things worse. He stayed there for 13 days, fighting the illness while doctors tried everything they could. Sadly, on November 10, 1992, Connors passed away. The cause of death was lung cancer with pneumonia as a major factor. His death made many people sad, and tributes came from co-stars, athletes, and fans who loved him. Connors left behind a powerful legacy. His show, The Rifleman, is still loved by fans and continues to air on television even today. It helped shape how single fathers were shown on television and inspired other westerns. Connors also made high story in sports as one of only 13 people to play in both Major League Baseball and the National Basketball Association. His life story remains a testament to the American dream of reinvention and success through hard work and determination.